Hello and welcome to the Recognized Authority podcast. I'm here with Anne Janzer, who is a former guest and also one of my fellow authors in the 33 Ways series. So, Anne, we're going to talk today about book promotion, right? And we're going to record this as a regular conversation, and maybe we'll put it out as a podcast episode and maybe not. Is that okay?
Okay, that sounds great. Let's try it.
Cool. Okay. Now, you are a six-time author. Is that right?
Yep. That's
So, do you have your process down pat now for promotion, or how do you
for promotion.
are you kind of figuring it out on the fly every time?
So I'm always figuring it out on the fly. And here's the really interesting thing. So I have 6 different books, and they all need different things work for different ones, which really is, sort of the core of my message is that there is no one formula. Anybody who says this is the answer for book promotion,
Right.
is probably misguided. It may be their answer, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's yours.
Right,
So
okay.
it's something really to keep in mind is that, if you have a book, and this probably applies to stuff besides books. So
Mhm.
you can think about this in a larger framework. But there's so much advice about what you should be doing. And books, especially, authors are just bombarded with stuff about what they should be doing, plus all their ideas about what it is to be
Yeah.
an author and have a book, right? The things you see in the movies and all of those things. And we just have to set most of that aside and think both creatively and strategically about how this is going to work in our lives. So that's I would love to just do sort of a live conversation about your book, Alastair,
Okay. Well,
and
I
see
finally
what
found my
people
pen so
can
I can take notes.
take notes. Well, I think you're recording it too. So
I think I am. I find that taking notes actually helps me to process the information. So
okay.
but yeah, so okay. So I have this new book. It's called 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Your Business Podcast. And I haven't really got any kind of promotion plan because I kind of wrote it by accident. I wasn't really intending to write that book. So,
Oh no, I wrote a book by accident. Whoops.
well, it kind of was like that because I only did it because I was talking to you, and then I was talking to Melissa, and I was like, geez, could I write a book like that? Yeah, let's see. And so I wrote it to 33 points. And by the time I wrote those out, I felt, well, I kind of have it half written at this point. I just need to fill in the blanks. So
Yeah,
it was actually a very easy book to write, in that sense. So,
love it.
so yeah, so I hadn't really, and I've realized as well that this kind of makes me the podcasting guy, even though I hadn't really intended to position myself that way, but I am doing that. So,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I'm adapting some of my offerings in terms of my services to kind of embrace that.
That's so interesting. Yeah, when you write a book on a topic, it's kind of you write a book on it, you own it,
Mm.
whether or not you intended to, which is such a great story too. But so you're not in, the way you wrote your book is perhaps accidental, but the situation you're in is pretty common where people like put all their efforts just into writing the book because,
Oh yeah.
right? And then they come out and they publish and they're like, well, now what? Now how am I
Mm.
going to promote this thing? And this is where people really quickly become either discouraged or overwhelmed or something.
Yeah.
So so your situation is common. So let's talk through your situation and everyone can pull from it what might be useful for them. So first is, I hope I've already, sweep away a lot of your current existing thoughts. My God, I have to get a publicist and be on Oprah or something. I'm sure that was not probably
Don't
top
think
of
I'm
your
going on an
list.
Oprah with this book. No.
No, it's not an Oprah book. It's not an Oprah
It's
book.
not an
So I
Oprah
mean,
book. No.
right. It
Hey, Oprah, if
depends.
you're listening, it's okay. I'll come on. I don't
Yeah,
mind.
it's not,
She
not
may be
not
a,
to
a
say you're turn
huge
it
business
down.
podcasting fan.
Yeah, right. You never know. You never
Yeah.
know. Um, but so much of what you're going to do is going to depend obviously on your book, your
Hmm.
subject, and your readers and where they hang out, right?
Yeah.
So that's something to always keep in mind. Always think about your readers. But the other things that you need to think about are to start from a place of strength. Start from what it is that you do well, or that you find easy, or that you enjoy. So Alastair, what are some of your strengths that might relate to sharing this message and finding your readers?
Well, I guess podcasting
Yeah.
because that's what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
And creating that kind of content. And
Yeah.
I'm fairly good at, I'm not actually extroverted. I know I might appear to be an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert, but I just have kind of faked how to extrovert. So, but I'm happy to go on and talk to people. So I can imagine that reaching out in some way to podcasters, although even then I wonder if the topic is too meta for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
No,
don't
but
know.
there's something there but there's a core of it, the relationships. You're pretty good at reaching out and having conversations with people. And
Yeah.
in fact, I think maybe introverts in some ways might be even not good at the reaching out part, but good at the conversations, the one-to-one conversations. So that is something to bring into bear as we think about ways for you to market your book.
Okay. So where do your particular individual's unique strengths lie?
Yeah, your unique strengths and the things that you enjoy doing too. I mean, it's and then there's a secondary thing, and we'll get to this next, which is what might you be interested in learning or curious or interested in playing with, right? So it's good to use book promotion as personal growth. You might say, I want to explore this one thing. You might be, I want to do a little bit more with video, for example. I don't know. I'm not trying to put that in your mouth, but maybe I would add that as something to explore. But that's, that's about all that you have time. I mean, it's better to do a few things very well in your book promotion than to scatter yourself really thin and just be lost in the sea. And I think too many people go for that second option, which is, I'm going to be on every social media platform and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. It's like, start simple, start with your strengths. Something that I know from having read your book that you're good at is also process and streamlining your processes and automating. So that's going to hold you in very good stead as you do this too, because the whole point is that the book promotion needs to be something that fits into your life and fits into your business. It can't take all your time. If it becomes this huge time sink, you are just not going to do it. And, so you've got to find something that fits really well, like a comfortable sweatshirt, that you're willing to wear a lot.
So, okay, let me see. Some of the questions that I have are, do I need to mail physical copies of the book out to people, or who should I be doing that to? Should I be spending money anywhere? How do I get reviews? So I don't know.
Yep. Okay, good. So the first thing I would say is that I feel strongly that the best marketing for a good book is the book itself, right? If you've written a good book, and you have, Alastair, because I've read it, so I know this, is that yes, sending a physical copy of it to someone who is in a position to recommend it to others makes a heck of a lot of sense. And this is like, the simplest. Are you going to spend thousands on a book publicist? Or are you going to spend $100 on a carton of books and, $4 a pop to mail it to people with a personal note? I mean, which, you could take your whole marketing budget and putting into shipping books strategically to people with a note, and you will probably outperform people with huge budgets spending it on ads and places, I mean, because you can target specifically people who influence your potential buyers.
Yeah.
And because your book is, so your situation, your book is about running a business podcast. So your potential buyers are most likely listening to podcasts. I mean, so it's obviously, talking about it on your own podcast, reaching out to other podcast hosts as a guest speaker, and then, forming the relationships, you send them the book, all of that. This just, to me, that would be the obvious sweet spot. It fits in what you're already doing. You have the processes, you have the expertise. You can fit that into your life without going nuts, right? So early on in the book, though, and you did mention reviews. So although I'm telling you to disregard most of what people are telling you have to worry about, I do think every author, especially every indie or hybrid author, really, really needs to take advantage of everything that to optimize the relationship with Amazon. Okay, and one of the ways that you do that is by getting a lot of reviews. It's the kind of social proof. you want reviews on every platform, of course, not just Amazon, wherever your book is selling. But Amazon, it feeds their algorithmic whatever. So you have to get comfortable asking for people to leave reviews. I will put the PDF of my book up on a service like BookFunnel, and I'll ask people, are you willing to leave a review? I will share you a link to a review copy. So they don't have to buy it if they don't want to, because you're asking quite a bit when you ask someone to leave a review. You can also send them a physical copy if you'd like to do that, whichever they prefer or need. But it takes a concerted effort to get the first chunk of reviews. And I have to confess, sometimes I don't follow through on that effort enough, and I need to return to it. And you can return to it at any time, which is the beautiful thing, is there's no, Amazon's never going to say, oh, you take the book back, I'm not going to sell it anymore. I mean, you do have some time, so you should take the pressure off. But you also want to make sure that your Amazon homepage is as strong and compelling as it can be. You can add some A+ content, which is a little way to just get more sort of advertising space on your page.
What's that?
For your own book. A+ content on Amazon. You can put a few graphical images up. It's basically, it shows up, you see it on some books, it's from the publisher. And it's more like ads for the book itself. So if you want to, in your case, I would hit like certain little nuggets buried in certain chapters that people might get them curious, or think, oh, this is good. This is going to be what I need. I mean, you really want to match the book to the buyer. You want people to see and expect, when they get it, it meets their expectations and exceeds them, but they're not like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was, right? So you want to, the more insights you can give to what's in the book is good. And when you take advantage of that real estate on the Amazon page, you're owning more of that. Less of it is ads for other people's books, right? Because that's a lot going on. So things like that. We can also, there's some things you can do. It's a little too complicated for this podcast, but to encourage Amazon to put your book in the Great on Kindle category, which gives people discounts if they read it on Kindle. I've done this thing for all of my books, and only 2 of my books have earned the Great on Kindle badge. So I'm not sure exactly what makes it happen, but it's worth trying.
Right. How do you prioritize in terms of Kindle version versus print version? So
the Kindle version gives me, as a marketer, a lot of control over, oh, I can set the price down, I can set the price up, because there's no physical thing to put limitations on the price. So I do a lot of my monkeying around on the Kindle version. But obviously a lot of people want the print, and it really varies with my books. It's just, there's almost slightly different buyers. I don't know. I read both, so I'm not sure that I see the diversion, but you're just going to have to see where your purchase patterns come out.
I personally, as a reader, I read an awful lot. I read about a book a week in terms of fiction, and I buy always ebooks on fiction, but then for nonfiction, I always buy hardback or paperback, like print.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, it's split for me along different genres, around different types of writing. Sometimes I buy more fiction because if it's something I know I really might like, I might want to pass it on to my daughter or my sister, and so send them a book is fun. So there's that. I do just a whole mix of things, but I know that a lot of people have very segmented patterns. It's just that everybody's are different, and so that's why I think we need to be everywhere as much as possible with our books in as many formats as we can. So what I would say is, for you, looking at, here you are right now, there's some things to do now because it's early in your book. Really spend some time asking for reviews, do the uncomfortable ask for reviews. Anytime anyone say, hey, I saw your book and that looks great, hey, would you be willing to leave that in an Amazon review? Anytime you get a compliment, the first thing you say is, thank you. Would you be willing to write that sentence in an Amazon review?
Yeah. I can imagine that gets awkward after the 100th time you've asked, but.
Yep. Yeah. But this is your life now. So And then give them a reason. When you ask for a review, here's a little, that little psychological trick. You say, because it really helps people find the book, because it helps Amazon, match the book to the readers, because whatever, because people are much more likely to take the action if you give them a reason, which
that's straight from Cialdini.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the copy, the photocopy experiment. Right. So any reason, because I want it is almost one, but we won't go there. But always give people a reason to do it. And eventually they will. It's just a slow kind of process. I think you also need to let people know. In your case, you can say it's maybe an hour and a half to read, and just a sentence or two of what you found useful would be great in the review. You don't, people get this, if they're not used to writing reviews, they think they have to write like a book report or something from college or something. And that's not what you're asking for at all.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Spend a little time asking for reviews, start doing podcast outreach things like that. And then spend a little time
about that.
Yeah.
When you're trying to do podcast outreach, so one of the first things we talked about was strategically shipping a physical copy of the book to certain target people that you think might be influencers. And I'm assuming that podcasters are in there. So for those who, like, there's a lot of podcasts out there. For those who we don't want to ship a physical copy to because it just gets too expensive to that, infinitely. Do we send them an e version of it, like a PDF or something, or what do we do?
Yeah, I think, so again, I use this little service called Book Funnel, and I think the most basic level is, I don't know, $80 a year, $100 a year. I don't know. And maybe there's a more basic, there's a free one, but it creates a really nice landing page, and it goes through, you can put your ebook file as well as the PDF there, so they can choose what format they wanted. They can get it delivered to their Kindle. I mean, they can do these things so they can read it in whatever way is comfortable for them. So that's one nice way, rather than fussing with shipping files around. Here's a link to the book. You can download the review copy to take a look at what's involved. And that is a really nice way to handle and offload you from all of the, what format do you want? How to get this on your Kindle? All of that stuff just no longer is your problem. So that's a nice professional way to offer people. And you can say, here's a link, and if you'd like a paper copy, send me your shipping address or something. That would be one way to do it. Not most people won't, but a few will. That saves you a lot of time.
Okay, cool. So you create your book funnel page for your book, and then you send that with your podcast pitch, basically.
Yes. Then you send it with your pitch for the podcast. Just say,
cool.
Here's a link to the book if you want to take a look at it. It's a super quick read. Love your Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think in your case, the book will do a lot. Let people know. I think that the size of the read, because the time commitment is not huge. What you're asking, you can skim through pretty quickly. Take a look at the chapters.
Cool. Okay. All right. So, to summarize everything so far, in terms of promotion, you're talking about, first of all, doing a few things really well. The things that you like doing.
Yes.
Strategically shipping the book to people who you have targeted as people, ideally with audiences. That's what you're looking for, who are willing to promote your book to the audience. And some of those may be podcasters. And for those who you don't want to send a physical copy to, you can send an e-version of it using something like Book Funnel.
Right.
And then in terms of getting reviews, asking everybody, anybody who compliments the book, ask them.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is that everything so far?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's a good foundation, a good grounding of what you should be doing.
Yeah. Plus putting the A+ content, you called it. Is that an Amazon thing?
It's an Amazon thing. So if you go onto your KDP dashboard, and we can talk through it at some point, but take a look I can send you a link to some, or look for some books that have these different links so you can see.
Yeah.
It's on most of my books have A+ content as well.
Okay.
So.
I'm definitely going to check that out. And then having a good, you call it your Amazon homepage. Is that the author page? Is that where you do an author central? Is that it?
Well, that's good, but I was actually talking about just the books page on Amazon, the page for the Kindle and all that, because that's where the A+ stuff shows up.
Right.
If you get editorial reviews, you add them there. Basically, you want to control as much of that real estate as you can. So that's what I'm talking about, and making sure you have a nice, sharp book description, which I'm sure you do.
Right. Yeah, I think it's okay. I'd love to get your feedback if you think it's good or if you think needs work.
I keep tweaking mine, to be honest. I mean, I let it go for a while and it's like, oh, I think I need to refresh it. And I think that's because we really want to be looking at, we really want Amazon to understand who to put this book in front of. I mean, so all this tinkering I've done with my oldest book, and right now Amazon picked it for this Amazon big deal thing for a week. It's discounting it. It's promoting it for a week. Now, don't you want Amazon marketing your book for you? Yes, this is the dream. This is the writer's dream. So, and I think that's because of all this kind of work. Now, I've done, those are the baseline. I've done, like I said, there's this other category of things you're willing to experiment with or you're curious about. So I've done a lot of work with discount book promotions, and that's worked really, really well for some of my books. Again, discounting the Kindle version because that's the easiest one to get a handle on, right? So that's a whole area of expertise I developed. I decided I was interested in it. It kind of let me play with my marketing, pricing, Amazon algorithm interests.
In order to do that, you have to have KDP Select, right?
No, you can do it without being in KDP Select. It's just that you're not going to get as nice a royalty.
Okay,
so
right.
it's harder to make it pay off immediately, but I think it still does pay off over time. So even if you're not in KDP Select, you just go and you physically change the price of your book to something, and whenever you're done, you go physically change it back, and know that Amazon has a little bit of a time lag on setting those prices. So
I've noticed that Amazon has a time lag with pretty much any change that you make, and that could be from 2 minutes to 3 weeks, depending on what the change is.
Should never be 3 weeks. They do say 3 days is the outer limit. Usually about a day is what I've found.
Well, what I found there was it took 3 weeks for my paperback to become available. After
that's just crazy. That's so weird. Yeah.
On some of the Amazon stores, it was available quicker on some of the other ones, but although it was available for order, the shipping date was still 2 weeks out. So
that
was the thing that I found was frustrating, because I was waiting for the book, because I wanted to get a copy of the book, and I couldn't get it until January 20th, even after publishing it on December 31st. So
were there print-on-demand printers broken in the UK or something? I'm not sure. That's a
you just don't know, like, what is all. I could order it on lots of the European sites, the Poland site, the French site, the Italian site, but when I got to my shipping address, it said we don't ship to this address, which was incredibly frustrating. And that's because I'm in Ireland, so I had to order it off the UK site. So I don't know why that happens, but it's just one of those kind of weird things. So so be it.
It is. That's the paperback. That's why when I monkey around with pricing and stuff, it's all on the Kindle, because it's all virtual, it's digital. You don't have the lag of the print world. So yeah.
Okay,
interesting.
So I need to go buy some padded envelopes, write some notes, and ship some books to people. I need to sign up on BookFunnel and send those links to a list of podcasters that I will create, and then I need to ask everybody who I talk to about the book.
That's right. If you're listening to this, go get Alastair's book and then leave a nice review, or just leave an honest review. Ask for an honest review. We want honest. We want honest reviews.
Yeah. So okay. So what else? What else do I need to do?
I think that's plenty right now. Not to overwhelm, your energy with it,
Mhm.
because obviously you still have a life.
Yeah.
But the only, just feel creative about it. You don't have to do the things people say you should be doing. Be experimental, see what works and what doesn't, what feels good, what's interesting, what isn't.
Mhm.
It's really easy to just get yourself, like I said, in a sense of anxiety or overwhelm or something, or despair or something about books, and just let that all go. It's just solve the puzzle, keep working on it.
Mhm.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yeah,
One
I
other
think,
thing, I'm just
go
going to
ahead.
put this out there. And one other thing, which I'm not as good at, look for those points of leverage. So, for example, you might send the book to different people in the business development for the various services that host podcasts
Yeah.
or services that support podcasters. So you send them a few copies of the book, see if they're interested in some sort of using it as some sort of marketing or something, so I mean, look for leverage points where instead of trying to chase single sales, you're
Mhm.
looking for situations where you can expand your reach far beyond what is easy for you to do yourself.
Yeah, I like that. That's very smart because I was thinking about the bulk sales.
Yeah.
I'm wondering because I know that a lot of nonfiction business authors will look for bulk sales somewhere, and I was wondering where those might come from for me. So,
Yes. I think bulk
podcast,
sales
yeah,
take the greatest amount of productivity. But yeah, I think for you, there's a whole ecosystem of podcasts, even, microphone manufacturing. I mean, whatever it may be,
yeah.
just think creatively about all the people who serve and are speaking to in various ways your audience.
Mhm.
And that they should get some of your books sent to them.
So I have some other resources that I've created. For example, I have a podcasting equipment list, which is a free download, um, which has all my equipment recommendations. So
Great.
I'm wondering what should I be doing with those? Is there a way to use those? How would you recommend
Well,
getting the
since
most
that is
value out of those
something
then?
that is a valuable resource in and of itself, you are collecting email addresses so you can send it to them. Is that right?
Mhm.
Because
I can do. I also have it available to. I have it available on my guest FAQ page. So if people go to potentially sign up as a guest, they can go download it for free.
Yeah, that's fine.
No opt in because I want my guests to have good equipment when they come on my show.
I agree. I don't think you really want to lock down these things, but I think most people are perfectly willing to. It's like, oh, I'm willing to give this guy my email address because
Mhm.
ultimately, your email list is going to be your best friend. That's where you're going to find the communities of people who are interested in what you are writing about, what you are sharing, and so to
Mhm.
use those to generate email signups is good. I'm preaching stuff I don't do terribly well myself, so
Mhm.
I take that all with a grain of salt. But yeah, share the resources. I mean, I here's my philosophy, Alastair. Find ways to be generous and strategic.
Mhm.
Find that balance. Always be generous, but if you're be generous with a dose of strategy. If you're generous without strategy, you're just going to burn yourself out. If
Yeah.
you're strategic and never generous, nobody's going to want to talk to you. So be
Mhm.
generous and strategic as the foundation of your book marketing. How can I help? How can I serve this community of people? How can I serve people who want to start podcasts or who are doing business podcasts?
Mhm.
Um, and the more you do that, the more you become part of that community and build people who appreciate that.
Cool.
So,
Okay, I have one more question, which is kind of unrelated, but it's to do with the audiobook. Um, where does the recording of the audiobook lie for you in terms of priority? Do you try and get it out as quickly as possible, or do you start promoting the print book first and work on that and get to the audiobook whenever you can?
so I do the second, partly because again I'm recording my own audiobooks, and by the I have to get through the writing
Mhm.
and publishing parts. Though there's a strong argument to be made for recording it as you're releasing, because boy, you will find those last typos when you are reading it aloud.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just gonna say
that's a good point. Yeah,
you will find those last typos, or the things that's like,
just for the record, Anne found a pretty big typo. Well, not a typo, a missing piece of text in the book. So thank you.
It happens. Perfection is not our friend here. So if you can do it all at once, again, I'm worried more about the emotional, cognitive, whatever load. Trying to do it all at once just might kill me. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So my first priority is always sanity. And then I feel like there's a benefit if it comes out a few months later. Mine have been more delayed for various reasons having to do with figuring out production and quiet space as we've moved, and anyhow. It gives you a reason to come back to the audience and say, hey, remember that book? Now the audiobooks. So there's an advantage to having it a little ways after. I do feel the audiobook drives print sales, but I also just think we need to be doing audiobooks. People are listening. We need them.
There's a lot of people love audiobooks. Yeah.
Yep. So, and some of them will reach out to you when you announce your print and say, this is great, but when's the audiobook coming out? So you have a reason.
Somebody today who said that to me.
Yep, exactly. So especially for your potential.
I'm terribly dyslexic. I love reading, but if you can give me an audiobook, that's the way to go.
Yeah. So if you can do it without too much delay after, you should definitely do that. But it does give you a reason to sort of extend the launch of your book and refresh the launch.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. Yeah. So that makes me feel a little bit better about delaying the audiobook a bit. So thank you for giving me an excuse to procrastinate.
Not too long though.
Okay, cool. Let's say I do all of those things. I put it up in BookFunnel. I ship out some copies. I ask everybody for reviews, and I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs. What's next?
So I keep a track. Once a month, I go and I look at the sales on each platform. I look at the revenues. I try to see how it's tracking to what I'm doing to get some sense, because we don't always know what's working. And that's the point at which I'd say, okay, let's say you've hit a steady state. What am I going to do? Do I want to focus on one thing? Do I want to focus on bulk sales for a while? Or do I want to experiment with casting a wider net? So I'm going to do a discount book promotion. So I'll knock the price down for a week and I'll just blast everybody about it and use some services to reach people I wouldn't have otherwise reached. I think I try to take sort of a rotating look through my book marketing and say, well, this book's kind of sitting quiet. What can I do for this one that I haven't been doing? So I'm experimental. I try to be creative with it, talk to other authors. You should listen to what other people are doing without feeling like you should need to do it all, but just to find the gems that might make sense for you.
Yeah. Okay. One thing I have heard said in the world of fiction authors is that one of the best way to sell your book is to write another book. Is that true for nonfiction, for business books?
Not as much. I mean, unless they're linked. So often fiction authors, because with fiction, we tend to say, I like this author, I'm going to read everything they write. Yeah. And that happens with some nonfiction authors. I mean, clearly there are some people, Michael Lewis writes a book about anything, I'll read it. I mean, it's just how it works. But it also, fiction writers often like to work in a series. Many things make more sense when you have a series. So when you hear about, elaborate advertising schemes, it's harder with a lot of one-off nonfiction books. Nonfiction readers don't tend to read the cycle of everything, what someone's written. They tend to look for a very specific niche. So especially as you're listening to fiction authors talk, pay attention, but recognize that their business model and their readership model is fundamentally very different than yours. Unless you want to do, Alastair, a series related to thought leadership or a series related to podcasting or something, in which case, there's more of an argument. I did a workbook to accompany an older book of mine, The Writer's Process, which came out a long time ago. And then this past year, I thought, well, I could create a workbook riffing on that and creating a bunch of creative exercises and assessments based on that.
Mhm.
So I did that, and that has sold very well. And that's a case where they support each other. The book supports the workbook supports the book. So you can find things that support each other.
Mhm.
But for most part, when we have sort of one-off topics, it's writing more books doesn't necessarily, it does a bit, but it doesn't drive up the way the fiction writers are talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. I think that's all the questions I had pre-planned. Is there anything
Great.
else I should ask you?
We could talk book promotion and book marketing, until the cows come home. I mean, that's the point, is there's so much, it's
Mhm.
nearly an infinity of things that we could be doing.
Yeah. So
And
about
we're
filtering
all
that
just,
down to what's realistic and achievable.
that's the key. That's the
Mhm.
key. And it's just giving yourself permission to, not, I tend to try to over optimize or over stress about what I should be doing. And so for me, and for many of the authors I talk with, it's the same thing. It's just like, whew, okay, let's just find, David Meerman Scott, he's a well-known marketing writer, bunches of books. For one of his books, he decided his whole book launch plan was going to be 100 podcast interviews.
Right.
So I
Cool.
just love that. It's like he picked one thing, did it really well. And, if anyone who's listening to this, as you want to try to do everything, just remember this kind of do one or maybe two things really, really well.
Yeah.
That's probably going to serve you well.
Cool. Okay. Now that I can do, because podcast guesting is part of my overall strategy anyway.
Yes.
So tweaking it and just thinking about it in terms of book promotion is fairly, it's not a stretch.
Yes, yes. It dovetails nicely with what you're doing. And that's,
Mhm.
find the sweet spots like that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, thank you so much. This
Yeah.
has been really useful for me personally, and I hope it's useful for the listener as well.
Hope so too.
Anne, where can people find you if they're interested in finding you and your books?
Sure. My website, annjanzer.com. That's ANNEJANZER.com.
Cool. And I will put a link to that in the show notes. And my book is called 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Your Business Podcast. And that is available now on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardback. I really love the hardback, I have to say. I'm really happy with the job that that Amazon have done with the print on that. And if you like it, please leave an honest review. So thank you for listening, and see you in the next episode.